General critical questions on great expectations made by Mr. Ahmad Latif. Our motto: full mark in your pocket.
1. Do you think the title Great Expectations is appropriate to the incidents of the novel? Yes, the events of the novel center around the main character in the novel, Pip, and his expectations and aspirations to be a gentleman and marry Estella too. What do you think the moral of Great Expectations is? Social class and position are not as important as kindness, loyalty, and true affection. 3. What were Pip's expectations at the beginning of the novel? His ambitions were to become a gentleman to improve his social position and win the heart of Estella. 4. What did Pip try to do to achieve his ambitions? Asked Biddy to teach him everything she knew. He went to London to learn as much as he could about manners from his friend Herbert 5. Do you think Pip achieved his goals? Why? No, he didn't. Though he became a gentleman for a time, he ended up with no money and did not marry Estella.
6. Do you think that Pip's kindness made a deep impression on the convict Magwitch? Yes, he escaped and could make a fortune. He decided to use this fortune to make a gentleman of Pip. He was Pip's secret benefactor. 7. Do you agree that Magwitch was a grateful, honorable person? Yes, he had never forgotten that Pip had helped him. He helped Pip to be a rich gentleman. 8. Do you think wealth can corrupt people? Give 2 examples from the novel. When Pip became rich, he spent money foolishly and fell into debts. Miss Havisham's tragedy was owing to her fiancé's desire for money. 9. Do you think that Joe's character was in contrast with Mrs. Joe's? Yes, Mrs. Joe was cruel to her husband and Pip, but Joe was kind and faithful to her and Pip. 10. Miss Havisham was determined never to overcome her tragedy. Illustrate. Time stopped for her since her fiancé left her. She never went out of her house. Even she stopped the clocks. She used Estella to revenge on men. 11. How do you think Estella was the victim of Miss Havisham? How do you think Miss Havisham trained Estella to be her own person? She adopted her and raised her to break men's heart. So Estella was rude and cruel to others. 12. Was Estella right to be a tool for Miss Havisham's revenge? Why? No, she wasn't right. She shouldn't have obeyed her. She shouldn't have broken people's heart. 13. Do you think that Pip was a sympathetic character? Give examples. Yes, he helped the convict Magwitch and helped Herbert secretly. 14. After meeting Miss Havisham and Estella, Pip developed a sense of inferiority. Discuss. He became ashamed of his simple life and social position. So, he decided to improve himself educationally, morally and socially. 15. Do you agree that Pip's behavior as a gentleman caused to hurt the people who cared for him? When he became a gentleman, he treated Joe and Biddy proudly. He avoided meeting them and other poor people.
16. Do you think that Estella deceived Pip? How? No, she was honest with him. Though he loved her, she was cruel and uninterested in him. She warned him and told him that she had no heir. 17. Do you agree to Pip's real motive for education? Why? No, Pip's real motive for education was to attract Estella's attention and marry her. The real motive for education must be for its importance. 18. Both Miss Havisham and Provis were victims of Compayson. Illustrate. Compayson deceived Miss Havisham and left her on the wedding day. He made Provis steal. 19. How do you think Miss Havisham changed at the end of the story? She asked Pip to forgive her and helped Herbert. 20. Do you think that Joe's gentility and kindness was rewarded in the end? Yes, he married Biddy and had 2 children. 21. How far was Joe faithful and loving to Pip? He treated him kindly since his childhood. He paid off his debts and looked after him when he was ill. 22. Do you think that throughout most of the novel, Biddy represents the opposite of Estella? How? Biddy was always kind and helpful. She treated Pip with respect. Estella was always cruel and rude to Pip. 23 In Great Expectations, how did Pip try to reinvent himself? Pip tried to become a gentleman to improve his social position. So he asked Biddy to teach him everything she knew. He went to London to learn as much as he could about manners from his friend Herbert. 24 Do you think that Pip's meeting the convict Mاجويت determined the course of his life? How? Yes, because Pip helped Mاجويت, and when the latter became rich, he decided to help Pip and made a gentleman of him. 25 How do you think that Pip's feelings towards Estella contrast with hers? Though she treated him rudely and was cruel to him, he always thought of her and was attracted by her beauty. 26 Do you think Miss Havisham's experience with her fiancé was the cause of her suffering throughout all her life? She had never changed anything in her house since her fiancé left her. Time stopped for her. She never went out of her house. Even she stopped the clocks. She used Estella to revenge on men. 27 Pip was unrealistic in his relation with Estella. Do you agree? Why? He thought that when he changed his position in society, Estella would love him. He didn't realize that Estella was brought up to be cruel and break men's heart.
28. Do you think that Pip was similar with the convict Mاجويت in some aspects? Yes, the convict had a miserable life like Pip. Both involved themselves in some illegal acts. Pip tried to improve himself but failed. Mاجويت tried to improve himself, but he was finally given a life sentence. Mاجويt could not see his daughter Estella. Pip could not marry his beloved Estella 29. Do you think that Pip was a real critic of himself? How? Yes, throughout the novel he always criticized himself. He stated that he had changed, but for not the best. He always felt guilty for the wrong things he did. In the end, he tried to reform himself. 30. Do you admire Joe's character? Why? Yes, Joe always appeared in the novel as a loyal and forgiving character even with those who abused him. 31. How do you think that Herbert proved to be friendly and optimistic character? Herbert was a true friend and looked after Pip when he came to London. He was always cheerful and positive. Pip described him as having a cheerful face. 32. In view of Pip's hopes and expectations at the beginning of the novel, Pip seemed to end the novel as a failure. Do you support this opinion? Why? Yes, I support this opinion. Though he became a gentleman for a time, he ended up with no money and did not marry Estella. 33. How do you think Miss Havisham affected Estella and Pip passively? She brought up Estella to be a cruel woman. This led to breaking Pip's heart. 34. Choose a character in the novel that you like most. Giving your reasons, Joe was a loyal and kind character. He was humble, honorable with a good nature. 35. Choose a character in the novel that you dislike most. Giving your reasons. Compeyson was a bad character. He was the main reason for Miss Havisham's tragedy. He took her money and deserted her on her wedding day. He also betrayed his friend Mاجويت and caused Mاجويت to face life sentence. Orlick was a bad character. He did not like Pip. He attacked Mrs. Joe and planned to get rid of Pip. 36. Though Mاجويت was a convict, he had good qualities. Illustrate Mاجويت was kind somehow and grateful. He had human feelings. Because Pip helped him, he decided to help Pip to be a gentleman and provided him with a lot of money. 37. How do you think that the theme of guilt is represented in the character of Miss Havisham and Pip? Miss Havisham felt guilty for her bad upbringing of Estella, which resulted in breaking Pip's heart. Pip felt guilty when he stole the file and the food to help Mاجويت. Also, he felt guilty when he treated arrogantly those who helped and were kind to him. 38. How do you think the theme of revenge is represented in the character of Miss Havisham? As her fiancé took her money and departed her on the day of their wedding, she decided to avenge on men by breaking their heart. 39. Do you think that Pip was a realistic character or not? Give your reasons? No. He believed that when he became a gentleman and well-educated, Estella would love him. 40. Do you think that good people were rewarded in the novel? Yes, Joe and Biddy are an example of good people. They got married and became a happy couple 41. Do you think that bad people were punished in the novel? Yes. Orlik and Compeyson were an example of bad people. They received their punishment in the novel. Orlik went to prison. Compeyson was drowned in his fight with Magwitch in the river 42. Can you sympathize with the character of Miss Havisham? Why? No, I can't sympathize with her character. She was a cruel woman. She hurt other people. She couldn't overcome with her tragedy till she died.